Think back, dear gamer. There was a time when acronyms like DC, AC, even HP meant nothing to you, and I would bet that time holds some of your favorite memories with role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons. So what if I told you you could relive that wonder? Today, we lean back into that beginner mindset and use our hard-earned experience to question whether or not D&D and similar games could be a little more fun for us if a few basic rules had been designed just a little differently. Because I'm Bob, this is where we learn how to have more fun playing RPGs together, and let's start with DC, or difficulty class. The current edition of D&D defines it like this. But in simple terms, it's the number you have to roll or exceed on a d20, plus some bonus your character has when they try something risky. However, this seemingly fundamental D&D mechanic didn't come about until the year 2000 in 3rd edition, so what are the old alternatives to DC? Before then, most non-combat challenges in D&D were resolved by rolling equal or under a target number, like the character's own ability score or a given percentage chance, even using different dice. Meanwhile, saving throws and attacks in combat were resolved by rolling high, but attack rolls were definitely not as straightforward as they are today. Today, most games pick one, roll high or roll low, because it's easier to learn and play, and personally, I agree with big number good. But there's another facet of DC that most popular games disagree on: how you determine that target number. If you're rolling under your own stat, you always know it. So the GM's duty is just to declare whether or not the attempt is reasonable in the first place, and I love that. If you're rolling high, though, the Game Master chooses the DC and often gets to decide whether they declare the DC before or after the roll. This could lead to some Game Master deception, but that's not the part I'm worried about. After about a decade of running games, I've noticed that players seem more likely to take a fun risk when they know exactly how risky it is, when they know the DC. Thus, my 3 simple solutions for rethinking DC. 1. Always announce it when the players are still planning. 2. Use a default DC for everything. 11, 15, doesn't really matter what it is as long as they know it. And 3, if the players have a resource like luck that they can spend to boost a roll after it's rolled, then it doesn't really matter if they know the DC beforehand. Like I said, simple ideas, but all 3 of those work for me way better than just knowing the DC in my head and it being like any random number between 8 and 26. Now, before we switch from difficulty class to armor class and its even more contentious history, quick shout out to RPG historian Shannon Appelkline, whose work was very helpful for summarizing D&D's changes and who's releasing a new TTRPG history book with today's sponsor, Designers and Dragons Origins by Evil Hat, telling the stories behind every classic D&D product from original, basic, and advanced D&D 1E in a 4-volume set. From foundational works like Chainmail, The White Box, Tomb of Horrors, Hamlet, and the first ever RPG hardcover books, to the forgotten gems that even the most hardcore grognards might not remember. If I counted right, it's about 330 books, and to have all that summarized by a historian really feels like a collector's dream. Just from reading the sample, I learned that, oh yeah, the 1977 Monster Manual really was the first hardcover book in the industry, because Gygax wanted it to be, quote, nearly indestructible, and that TSR was only able to produce the player's handbook using profits from the Monster Manual. That fun fact and countless more are in Designers and Dragons Origins. Check it out today on BackerKit through my link below so they know who sent you. Okay, armor class is defined like this in 5e D&D 2024. But AC is just the DC for attacking something. Also quite simple, and also was not so simple before D&D 3rd edition. Yeah, pre-Y2K, your character had a stat called THAC0, or 2-hit armor class 0. And if you wanted to make an attack, you would subtract the target's AC, a number typically between 10 and -10, from your THAC0 to calculate the actual target number for your attack. It's not as complicated as D&D memes make it out to be, and plenty of people still prefer to play this way, but doing a little mental subtraction for every attack does seem pretty tedious now that we have the DC style option. But wait a minute, is the entire basic D&D concept of rolling to hit needlessly tedious? Right around the release of D&D 5e 2014, another groundbreaking RPG emerged, Into the Odd by Chris McDowell. Of its many design decisions that have inspired hundreds of indie RPGs since, one of the most significant has been its lack of an attack roll. You just roll damage. Fewer rolls not only speeds up the game, but it can feel more heroic because you're less likely to miss an attack. And funny enough, you do a little mental subtraction for every damage roll because incoming damage is reduced by the target's armor score. But since armor in Into the Odd is only between 0 and 3, the math is really easy. Recent adaptations of this concept are seen in Nimble 5e, Draw Steel, as well as Daggerheart, which keeps the attack roll but still adds the option to spend armor to reduce damage. Ultimately, many folks who love D&D, Shadowdark, and other games with a 2-hit roll like it as is, or they solve half the problem simply by rolling their attack and damage dice together, myself included. But my own ideal solution for making armor a little more fun is closely designed to hit points. And pay close attention here. Rather than skipping D&D's definition, we're gonna read 2 D&D definitions for hit points. 1. Hit dice and hit points. This indicates the number of dice which are rolled in order to determine how many hit points of damage a character can take before he is killed. And 2. Hit points represent durability and the will to live. Creatures with more hit points are more difficult to kill. Your hit point maximum is the number of hit points you have when uninjured. Your current hit points can be any number from that maximum down to 0, which is the lowest hit points can go. Whenever you take damage, subtract it from your hit points. Hit point loss has no effect on your capabilities until you reach 0 hit points. Notice anything? Sure, the one definition is longer than the other to clarify some details, but HP works the same way according to both of these definitions. The strange thing is that they were written about 50 years apart. Of course, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But D&D streamlined the subtraction out of attack rolls and even changed its core roll. So why no lasting changes to the way we gamers track HP? Zooming out, I first experienced the D&D original concept of hit points while battling Pokemon on a purple Game Boy Color in like 1999. And the reason this same concept for health works so well in video games and was adopted in literally tens of thousands of video games is that a tiny computer does all the math for you. But in versions of D&D where hit points easily get into the hundreds, the math is not so easy. And they're really just vanity numbers because creatures are dealing and taking way more damage per hit. So, here's 2 ways that pen and paper games have kept HP simple, then I'll talk about my own weird idea for a minute. 1. Like Shadowdark, DCC, and more, just keep hit points low. When characters and monsters cap out around 50 hit points, the math isn't that hard. And 2, like DC 20 and Daggerheart, keep hit points really low. Players still roll big numbers because big number good, but the hit point math is easy because you only need to spot the damage threshold that the attack landed in, which then only translates to a couple points of damage per hit. And 3, my own wacky idea that, it probably exists in some other TTRPGs already, you can let me know down in the comments, has 2 parts. 1, use kinda low hit points, and 2, use a resource called, I think of it as hearts, but it could more accurately be called hit dice. You don't roll it, you just spend one to absorb a hit in the moment instead of being able to spend it later to recover from an attack. For example, I take 7 points of damage. That's a big hit with kinda low HP, so I'll spend a heart to take no damage and do no math. You get more of these as you ascend in level, and the cooler part is you can recover hearts mid-battle by doing cool stuff specific to your class. That's part of the fantasy RPG backburner side project that it would be really cool to release like a one-pager of sometime soon, but I've got too many side projects, so please consider joining Patreon or becoming a YouTube member so I can devote more time to that stuff, and because those direct supporters are the first people to get sneak peeks of the other things I'm always working on. Thank you, and keep building.